Okay, now we're going to show you how to put your cuff together. You're going to follow instructions in your pattern to determine the size you need to cut your cuff piece with your appliques on it. Once you get that cut, you're going to want to measure and trim off your selvage edge. So let's go ahead and trim that off. Remember to keep it square. Now let's measure our completed size. We have 19 3/4 by 8 1/2. You might want to record that on a piece of paper. We're going to go ahead and we have a strip here cut at 8 1/2 inches. We're going to trim off our selvage again. And then we're going to measure over 19 1/2 inches. Go ahead and put a pin. We're going to do 19 3/4 that we measured previously. Put a little pin to mark where that is. And we're going to trim that. You then take it to your machine. You're going to line up, putting right sides together. We're using different color fabric just for display for you to see. And you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam. Then we'll seam your two pieces together and you're going to press. Okay, so we've now placed our right sides together and sewed a 1/4 inch seam from cuff A and B. We're going to open it up and press it. We'll go ahead now and measure the full length. We're going to put our tape measure on and measure along to see what the length of cuff part C needs to be. In this case, it's 39 inches. I have taken our cuff part C and placed it right sides together with cuff A and B and sewed a 1/4 inch seam allowance at the bottom of the two to connect them. You're going to go ahead and sew, you would have sewed it clear to the end. You're going to press that like that. We're then going to take it like this and sew the two raw edges, the short ends together, a 1/4 inch seam. And now that we've got those two sections sewed together, we're going to sew our 1/4 inch along the short ends. We're going to press it open and we're going to turn them right side out and fold them in half. So we're going to actually take so that now we have a tube. You're going to want to pull that inside facing, which is the C section, up, even with the top edge. And you want to press along the edge of it, making it even. You're going to take your time and get that nice and smooth. Go all the way around your cuff, because it's if you've selected to quilt your cuff, it's going to have a little bit of a thicker seam down there, so you're just going to have to make sure you get it folded up all the way. work your way around. Okay, once we have that pressed, we've got it in a tube, you can see. You're going to place a few pins up there just to hold it together. Fold it in half like that, and then you're ready to cut your main portion of your pillowcase. But what you're going to need to do now is to measure what the width of this is. So you'll measure across from one end to the other, and you'll take that measurement times 2 plus a ½ inch, so you'll have enough for your seam allowance. So I'm going to take the whole width, which is 19 1/4. I'm going to times that times 2 and add a ½ inch, and that will give you your circumference of your cuff. You're then going to take your fabric that's the main portion of your pillowcase. You're going to want to trim off the selvage ends and measure that measurement that you just did, the 19 1/4 or whatever your pillowcase cuff turns out to be. So you'll go ahead and measure your 19 1/4 or whatever yours is, times 2 plus 1/2 inch to get your width of your fabric. You'll go ahead then and sew the selvage side together to make the cuff. You'll put the right sides together to do that, and you'll also sew across the top edge. So you'll go ahead and take your fabric, fold it right sides together. Remember, your selvage will already be cut off, and you'll sew across the top and down the side. Okay, we've now sewn the body of the pillowcase together, and we've added a border. If you'd like to have one, just cut one the width that you want or that it suggests in your pattern. You're going to cut it the same width as the pillowcase body, plus a quarter, or add a ½ inch for the seam allowance, and then take a 1/4 inch seam. We're now going to fold this pillowcase body in quarters. So first we'll fold it here, and we'll mark the ends, each half, with a pin. The seam allowance will be our division line there. We'll then turn it, lining up the seam allowance and the pin, finding the other fold mark on this side. You want to divide your pillowcase into quarters when adding it so that it'll fit together properly. Okay, we've already done that to our pillowcase cuff. We're now going to have right sides together, so we're going to put the pillowcase cuff inside of the pillowcase body. You're going to line up your pins. Go around and just make sure that everything lines up. And once you do that, we'll go ahead now and sew it together, taking a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, we've now sewed all the pieces together, our cuff to our body of our pillowcase, added our border, and we've turned it inside out and pressed it. It's now complete. So now have a great time and lots of fun laying on your cute little pillowcase.